Welcome to the Wesley Theological Seminary. All of today's events are to provide a thorough explanation of the work and the impact of Amir AbdelKader, the warrior and the scholar, and a holy man, a uniting force across North America, the 19th century Amir who became known by many Algerians as the George Washington of Algeria. Today's program has been months in the making. It's truly a special occasion for the scholars and the diplomats and followers of the man who is the focus of our attention today. A man of his time, a warrior, a statesman, and a leader of diverse peoples in North Africa in the early years of the 19th century. Before we begin our program, it's my honor to turn over the mic to the president of the Wesley Theological Seminary.
This is a seminary with many different kinds of students, and as was said, we celebrate a communion in our diversity. In particular, we have focused our attention on how we approach people of other faiths. And thanks to Dr. Sathi Clark, who's here with us today, we've come to understand that as being both passionately Christian and compassionately interfaith, meeting people at the deep level of their faith. And it's because we're an educational institution. And from the start, this event was designed as an opportunity for education. The Amir himself is an educator, and he has much to teach us. And I hope that as a result of the work we do today, we can foster better understanding of the people of all faiths. Thank you for coming.
We also owe a great special debt and gratitude today to His Excellency Majid Bouguera, the ambassador to the United States from the People's Democratic Republic of Algeria.
Amir AbdelKader, the man who founded the modern Algerian state and who was a valiant and fierce opponent of the colonial invaders of the land of his ancestors, a poet, a man of deep faith, a man of peace, and resolute promoter before his time of humanitarian law and human rights. A man whose thinking and actions have always been shaped and motivated by peace and tolerance. Peace and tolerance of which our world is today of great need. The UN General Assembly adopted last December a resolution which makes the 16th of May of every year the International Day of Living Together in Peace. On the occasion of the adoption of that resolution, President Abdelaziz Bouteflika said that, and I quote, "This is a way of demonstrating the need for us all to put together our capacities to understand each other, to accept each other in all our diversity. That diversity is not an obstacle, but rather, if smartly put at the service of human being, a source of progress for all humanity."
Some final words of welcome this morning from the Executive Director and co-founder of the AbdelKader Education Project, Kathy Garms.
AEP is reviving the life story of a great hero of 19th century fame who left a clear footprint in Northeast Iowa in 1846, which happens to be my hometown. Growing up, I didn't know about AbdelKader, but I do now. So who would have expected this global initiative to originate in the heartland of America so many years ago, and how did I become so involved? In 2008, I accepted an invitation in Algiers at the Council of Nation and Amir AbdelKader Foundation seminar. At the seminar, I met the president, Mr. Mohammed Boutaleb. Today, his daughter, Zora, called me. She is Secretary General of the AbdelKader Foundation in Algiers.
Nul personnage n'a pu intriguer l'histoire autant que l'Émir AbdelKader.
No person has intrigued us more than the history of Amir AbdelKader, in whom everyone recognized the grandeur of spirit and the immensity of his work. Not only the Algerian citizens, but also France, the United States, Russia, the Vatican, Vietnam, Venezuela.
I'm so excited that to introduce John Kaiser.
Relationships is really what it's all about. And whether it's in religion, your life, whatever part of your life, if you don't have good relationships with people, unless you're a hermit monk or a day trader or a theoretical mathematician, we need people. And we don't get much done without people. And if we don't have good relationships, that's not going to happen. And the Emir was, above all, a man who understood and valued and created good relationships with people of all kinds. And that's one of the big models that he offers us today.
First three voices on civil society will begin with Tamara Shahida of our Muslim Neighbor Ambassador Program, which is in Nashville, Tennessee.
I got involved in this program through a beautiful organization called the Faith and Culture Center. The Faith and Culture Center is a nonprofit community organization promoting coexistence and acceptance between people of various faiths and cultural backgrounds around the world. The Faith and Culture Center has a couple of programs, including our Muslim Neighbor Initiative, which kind of gets people to get together to know their Muslim neighbor. They have something called the Music City Iftar, which is a program that the city holds during Ramadan, in which people from various cultures and religions come and have an iftar together, breaking fast. They have a lecture series this year coming up about Islam and social justice and Islam's perspective on social justice. And of course, launched this year was the AbdelKader Ambassador Program.
I'm James Patton. I'm the president of the International Center for Religion and Diplomacy. We are an organization that operates on the conviction that within the best of human faith traditions are common values that cut across cultural, ethnic, and national divides and inspire adherents to practice compassion, empathy, kindness, all in the pursuit of collaborative relationships. So our mission is to bridge religious considerations with the practice of international politics in pursuit and support of peace building. With the support of the William and Mary Grieve Foundation, ICRD has recently conducted a project in the MENA region, Middle East, North Africa region, on how best to engage nonviolent fundamentalist religious actors in countering violent extremism work, exploring the considerations that are necessary to collaborate with those who have the access to and the influence over youth who are making the decisions whether or not to join groups like ISIS. As part of that study, ICRD brought together young students of religion in a pilot effort to explore the importance of historical heroes and religious role models from the Arab and Islamic world. And their discussion offers several insights regarding the task of leveraging these models for good.
My presentation is going to focus on the potential of heroes in the fight against extremism, and why the heroic initiative and why the heroes need to be fleshed out in this current climate. The heroic narrative has long been part of a central component of Muslim literature, lifestyle, and culture. The hero provides an invitation to explore the breadth and depth of Islam's role in shaping the aspirations and values of many hundreds of millions of people. At a time when Muslims are struggling to reclaim the power of defining these aspirations and values away from the extremists, identifying heroes in the Muslim community, both past and present, is essential to setting the record straight and providing Muslims with true Islamic heroes. There are three elements of Amir which I will conclude with that's really worthy of the heroic model in today's diverse and interconnected world. He was local, but he was also universal at the same time. He was deeply and authentically Muslim, yet he also grew spiritually, especially during his imprisonment in France, when he experienced the goodness of Christians and non-believers alike. His religious identity made him bigger, not smaller. He was a unifier, not a divider. He didn't see any conflict between politics, religion, and science. Politics, he said, should be governed by a desire to lead people to live together in harmony, and religion should provide a common moral base of shared values and common origin. And science, he said, should teach us how to grasp the basic unity of mankind. Our next segment feature of two speakers, which is the field of education. And first will be Tamar Miller, Curriculum Director from Amir AbdelKader Education Project, with thoughts on courage and confidence in the heartland.
I was trying to think in reading John's book, what really do I carry with me almost every day as I do this work? And it's the story, for some reason, of the Amir going to a concert in France after, of course, he was released. And the reason that sticks with me is because he had to be open. He had to be curious. He had to be a person who could have very strong boundaries of faith and culture and place, desire, but also have his boundaries somewhat permeable. And so he was able to learn. This takes place in Haifa, because I wanted to share a little bit of something of my tribe. This is Arabs and Jews, Muslims, Christians, Palestinians and Israelis singing together. And for me, this is an inspiration to be courageous enough to show this to you when I know there's also probably, or I would imagine, people in the room who are engaged in BDS, and I understand it, but I really wanted to share because there's so little time and I want to provide a little bit of hope. Thank you.
Ozzy Hussein, will you come up, please?
I will only tell you that there is about 40,000 religious leaders, interfaith leaders, madrasa students, and community leaders have been trained and are familiar in Pakistan about AbdelKader. It makes a huge difference. So each of those trainings, we have intentionally integrated AbdelKader's lessons within those training.
Ambassador Brahimi was an Algerian UN diplomat that served a number of mandates ranging from the War of Liberation to hotspots on every continent, and is a board member of the Civil Society of Academic Institutions in the US, Europe, and globally, notably, and currently a part of the elders formed by Mandela.
Along with all the people of my generation in Algeria, I think that our hard, costly struggle for independence in the 1950s and early 1960s was a continuation of the Emir's resistance to French invasion in the 19th century. His saga was a constant source of inspiration and hope to our people, generation after generation. This morning's speakers have convincingly demonstrated that the life, actions, and thoughts of the Amir could effectively inspire people today, young and less young, and also and to inspire them to renounce conflict and violence in favor of mutual respect, tolerance, and harmony in local communities, inside countries, and between countries. I hope that many in Europe and also in America will join your network at the AbdelKader Education Project.
The first place college winner is Michelle Perez.
I've chosen a concentration in post-conflict reconstruction and sustainability to achieve the capacity to rebuild and sustain peace after conflict. And I will turn to the life of the Emir when I feel conflicted or facing my own personal jihad. These universities, the first of which were new exposure to private Catholic schooling, allowed me to learn how to speak, finding my voice in unifying and reconciling, instead of dividing and destroying. Very much part of the Emir's message.
Our second place college winner is also from Seton Hall, William Virgili.
This put me on a different path because I was able to see the development of respect that the Emir had for all races and religion, regardless of whether they agreed with his views or not. This will have an impact further on because I am pursuing a degree in international studies with a concentration in security studies.
Congratulations to all the awardees, all of you young people. You inspire us, and you know we're going to be looking to you to save the world. We'll move on to the afternoon program, where we will be celebrating different aspects of the life of times of Amir AbdelKader and his contribution 2 centuries ago to the values and ideas and guiding principles we recognize today. First, remarks on the matter of security and diplomacy. Our guests this afternoon are Andre Bantorli.
It's important for us to realize that for us to step today, one day, thinking about AbdelKader, we are actually taking upon ourselves the responsibility of making history. Because history is not already made in the past. History is made by all of us when we try to understand. History is made when we decide to go back and ask the questions again. And wonder if there is not a role for a secular society as the United States and for AbdelKader as a model to engage the inquiry, the questions of our being together as we become the humanity that we are supposed to be. So as we engage with this American dimension, we particularly focus on the military. Mohammed Migahari is an alumnus of Seton Hall, and I'm delighted that he can speak about what we are doing together.
This past year at Seton Hall University with 2 of the students who had won today and 2 others, we did a project for the State Department about shifting narratives and moving towards substantial peace talks with the Taliban. And what we did was we determined a pillar system to engage new ideas and new thoughts, and one of our primary foundations was the Emir. And this year we're actually doing a project for U.S. Army Africa. They were so impressed to learn about Al-Qaeda and what we could potentially do. So we're looking at seeking a strategic approach or response to build the social reintegration of the extremists and actually base it off some of the programs they have in Algeria currently and Morocco, and kind of make that a program that hopefully could be emulated and reproduced in other countries that are having this issue. And we believe that Al-Qaeda will be a big foundation of that and what he's going to be able to do.
Matthew Peterson.
John read an article in the Marine Corps Gazette that I wrote about cultural knowledge and why it's a good idea to look for assistance in our regional conflicts through people who are from that region, rather than spend the majority of our time in the military training for lethal action that perhaps we can do better, since most of our conflicts are irregular in nature, to develop advanced cultural knowledge instead of spending a year training how to fight and then 2 weeks of what we laughably call cultural training, and then sending people overseas and expecting them to engage in a meaningful way with people we encounter over there. Perhaps it would be better to solicit assistance from people in those regions, and in that way we can do a better job at establishing the relationships like we've heard about from AbdelKader, certainly as a leading example. Several factors indicate that the past, present, and future of global conflicts is irregular, as I defined it earlier. And if we believe that war should be avoided, and the only humane purpose of war is to achieve a better peace, then the value of an investment in the human dimension of war, as evidenced by AbdelKader, is self-evident. AbdelKader is a mirror before the face of humanity that reflects who we could be and who we should be. The AbdelKader Project, of which I am a proud member of the board of directors, is an organization dedicated to telling his story. And I am grateful to each of you for your role in supporting it, and I trust you will continue to do so. Thank you.
The first of our spiritual voices will be Doug Johnston, former president and founder of the International Center for Religion and Diplomacy.
When we start heading toward conflict, the first thing we tend to do is dehumanize. And when you dehumanize, you relegate yourself to endless conflict. However, you can empathize, you can bring that conflict to a close with minimal loss, or if you start early enough, prevent it in the first place. And one of the things that I'm happy to say is that the International Center for Religion and Diplomacy which James Patton is so brilliantly leading at this time, began and has continued to practice this empathy. Empathy is so terribly important. And hats off to the Emir who showed us the way more than a century and a half ago. So thank you very much.
We'll continue on with Mark Danner.
My point in this personal talk, in this exposure of the methods of looking for brothers of AbdelKader, is that they exist today, but it's a personal work. It's a sometimes even a risky work, because there are those out there as well who will manipulate it. So again, it's a work. It's a jihad. It's an inner work. And one has to love the truth more than oneself. And to that, the Emir is truly a model for me.
I now want to invite Robert Dixon Crane, a real dedicated servant to Islam.
The analogical bird has two wings, and we're all familiar with that. The right wing is the spiritual wing. That's man's ability and responsibility to be aware of a higher source of truth, which is really the essence of all religions. And the left wing is the action arm of the bird. If you have truth and you can process it into principles and then you can apply it, the left wing applies it. But my addition, I gave the commencement speak at Abu Nur University, and all that people knew there was the two wings. And I said, no, this doesn't work. This bird needs a tail. The tail is going to direct it to go right or left or wherever. I say that Amir AbdelKader is a marvelous example of the analogical bird of Abu Nur.
We would like to hear summations of today's program from two distinguished persons. First, from Dr. Saeed Said, the President of Islamic Society of North America, and then from our host, Dr. David McAllister Wilson, President of the Wesley Theological Seminary.
When we are trying to shape our society here, both Muslim and non-Muslim together, we want those leaders. We want models who have represented this understanding of Islam, whose personal integrity, whose scholarship, whose knowledge, whose delivery has represented this higher degree of Islam. And that's why Amir is our Amir.
What I think I'd say about today is that this has been a fertile day. And my prayer is that these seeds that have been planted today will grow. And I am grateful to all of us who worked in this garden to prepare for this day. Thank you.
We want to bring all the speakers up to the stage to take a group photo.